This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Clean Cut Barbershop, located on 21 East Kelsey Avenue in Salt Lake City, Utah. To schedule an appointment, visit cleancutbarbershopslc.com. Walk-ins are also welcome. Mention Short Story Bingo and receive $5 off your first visit. Now, on to the show!
Ooh, that's a bingo! Is that the way you say it? That's a bingo.
You just say bingo.
Bingo! How fun!
Episode 40 already. Synchro nice. Nate Chacon III. This is Short Story Bingo. How are you doing today? Happy Podcast Friday. I hope your weekend is packed, ready to rock and roll. If this is your first time, welcome. If this is your second time, the retention program is working. What we do on this podcast is I read a story that you might not have ever heard before as a glorified narrator. It's like Audible. Sorta. Thank you guys for rocking with me for the last couple episodes at least. We're going to probably steer away from serial killers for just at least a couple more episodes. I got to kind of definitely take a step back from Robin Gecht and his Ripper crew. Episode 39, just the previous episode. Very intense, man. Just very intense. Without giving any of it away, you know, just click on the previous episode to listen to that. It's intense, man. Those guys did a lot of crazy stuff. The Korean Cannibal Gang, they did a lot of crazy stuff too, also. But we are not there. We are on episode 40 right now. So, and what we're going to read from is a very classic writer. Super excited about it. H.P. Lovecraft, who was actually H.P. Lovecraft was recommended to me by my boy Pat, who has been on the podcast as well. But he was like, "Yeah, man, you got to read H.P. Lovecraft because he has some of the most, like sci-fi at a pure example, like just being." Like H.G. Wells, I guess, right? So, yeah, I'm just really excited to read out of this. This is the second sci-fi story that I will have read. The other sci-fi story was, of course, episode 37, which was just a couple ago. But anyhow, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Of course, we have the top 3 countries that have been listening as of late, and we have the United States, of course, Canada, and India. Now to the States, Utah. This is the second week in a row, or is it the third? It might be the third. Top 3 states. Here we go: Maryland, New Jersey, and Texas. Utah, where you at? That's crazy. But also, I certainly appreciate the expansion of what we're doing here. And of course, our random Twitter follower shout out goes out to my boy Shane Curtis at Sleep, SLEEP. Sleepem, yes. So SLEEPEMYES. But like I was saying, so I wanted to go back into like just storytelling. The story that we're gonna do today is called The Terrible Old Man. It was written January 28th, 1920. It was first published in the Tryout, Volume 7, Number 4, July 1921. So I'm really excited about this. H.P. Lovecraft. I got this book actually online, but I absolutely intend on getting a hard copy of it. So, we're gonna make sure that we get into this like just head on. So, thank you so much again. So many other episodes to listen to. This is episode 40, 10 more to 50. And at 50, I'm going to start putting ads in, much more ads. With that being said, please, if you are in the Salt Lake City area, 21 East Kelsey Avenue, Clean Cut Barbershop, my boy Jody Joe, John Cook, and the rest of the clan over there, they will get your lineup done for you. Make sure that you have a clean fade. You don't got to go to Great Clips, fella. And if you have a kid, whatever, man, just go over there. Clean Cut Barbershop, it's official sponsor. Let's get into the opening song. God. Short story bingo. Short story bingo. Short story bingo. Short story bingo. Sometimes they're funny and sometimes they're sad. Most of the time they're funny because I hate to be sad. Short story bingo. Short story bingo. Short story bingo. Short story bingo. But don't take my word for it. Spare fingers. It was the design of Angelo Ricci and Joe Zanuck and Manuel Silva to call on the terrible old man. This old man dwells all alone in a very ancient house on Water Street near the sea, and is reputed to be both exceedingly rich and exceedingly feeble, which forms a situation very attractive to men of the profession of messers. What is that? It's spelled Messrs. The only thing that I can think of is that it means like thief. Let's see what that means. Uses the title to refer formally to more than one man simultaneously, or in names and companies. Okay. All right. Which forms a situation very attractive to men of the profession of messers. Ricci, Zanuck, and Silva, for that profession was nothing less dignified than robbery. Got it. Okay. The inhabitants of Kingsport say and think many things about the terrible old man, which generally keep him safe from the attention of gentlemen like Mr. Ricci and his colleagues. Despite the almost certain fact that he hides a fortune of indefinite magnitude somewhere about his musty and venerable abode. He is, in truth, a very strange person, believed to have been a captain of East India clipper ships in his day. So old that no one can remember when he was young, and so taciturn that few know his real name. Among the gnarled trees in the front yard of his aged and neglected place, he maintains a strange collection of large stones, oddly grouped and painted so that they resemble the idols in some obscure temple. Okay, so he just has like these stones. I feel like that's not abnormal, I guess. I think that he's already like one of the most interesting men in the world, and these guys are just they obviously just want to rob him. This collection frightens away most of the small boys who love to taunt the terrible old man about his long white hair and beard, or to break the small paned window of his dwelling with wicked missiles. Wait, what year is this? Wicked missiles? I'm sorry, sir. Let's read that one. Okay. This collection frightens away most of the small boys who love to taunt the terrible old man about his long white hair and beard, or to break the small paned windows of his dwelling with wicked missiles. So I assume it could be anything, like you just throwing shoes or something, or rocks, stones. Okay. Because you're not throwing missiles, I guess. Missiles. I don't know, whatever. But there are other things which frighten the older and more curious folk who sometimes steal up to the house to peer in through the dusty panes. These folks say that on a table in a bare room on the ground floor are many peculiar bottles, and each a small piece of lead suspended pendulum-wise from a string. And they say that the terrible old man talks to these bottles. I'm sorry? Addressing them by such names as Jack, Scarface, Long Tom. I can't make these up. These Long Tom, Spanish Joe, Peters, and May Ellis. And that whenever he speaks to a bottle, the little lead pendulum within makes certain definite vibrations as if in answer. I know that there's, energy pendulums that you can you place in the... I just don't know if I've ever thought about giving it a name. Spanish Joe seems like a name that I might go with, or Creative Carl, or Tantalizing Tim, or Don't Name Your Stone. What the okay. So, all right, so let's do this one more time. And they say that the terrible old man talks to these bottles. And in the bottle, again, so like, okay, let's run that back. These folks say that on a table in a bare room on the ground floor are many peculiar bottles. In each, a small piece of lead suspended pendulum-wise from a string. And they say that the terrible old man talks to these bottles, addressing them by such names as Jack, Scarface, Long Tom, Spanish Joe, Peters, and Mate Ellis. And that whenever he speaks to a bottle, the little lead pendulum within makes certain definite vibrations as if in answer. Those who have watched the tall, lean, terrible old man in these peculiar conversations do not watch him again. But Angelo Ritchie and Joe Zanuck and Manuel Silva were not of Kingsport blood. They were of that new and heterogeneous alien stock which lies outside the charmed circle of New England life and traditions. And they saw in the terrible old man merely a tottering, almost helpless graybeard who could not walk without the aid of his knotted cane. That seems regular. And whose thin, weak hand shook pitifully. They were really quite sorry in their way for the lonely, unpopular old fellow, whom everybody shunned, and at whom all the dogs barked singularly. Just like it's just like painting this character. He's it almost seems like, I don't know if you guys have read the book Man Called Ove, I think. It just was not just, but it has been released recently. It was on the New York Times bestseller list, but I kind of get that vibe from this guy. And I don't know if that author, maybe read this or whatever, but that's what it reminds me of. They were really quite sorry in their way for the lonely, unpopular old fellow, whom everybody shunned and at whom all the dogs barked singularly. But business is business, and to a robber whose soul is in his profession, there is a lure and a challenge about a very old and very feeble man who has no account at the bank, and who pays for his few necessities at the village store with Spanish gold and silver minted 2 centuries ago. So this guy's loaded, I feel like. Messrs. Ricci, Zanuck, and Silva selected the night of April 11th for their call. Mr. Ricci and Mr. Silva were to interview the poor old gentleman, whilst Mr. Zanuck waited for them in their presumable metallic burden with a covered motor car in Ship Street, by the gate in the tall rear wall of their host's grounds. So, they're definitely gonna rob this cat. What the fuck, man? Just leave him alone. Just let him be an old man. Be an old man. Just be an old man. Desire to avoid needless explanations in case of unexpected police intrusions prompted these plans for a quiet and unostentatious departure. As prearranged, the 3 adventurers started... I would not call them adventurers. I'd call them fucking robbers, man. As prearranged, the 3 adventurers started out separately in order to prevent any evil-minded suspicions afterwards. Okay, all right. Messrs. Ricci and Silva met in Water Street by the old man's front gate. And although they did not like the way the moon shone down upon the painted stones through the budding branches of the gnarled trees, they had more important things to think about than mere idle superstition. They feared it might be unpleasant work making the terrible old man loquacious concerning his hoarded gold and silver. For H.C. captains are notably stubborn and perverse. Still, he was very old and very feeble, and there were 2 visitors. Messrs. Ricci and Silva were experienced in the art of making unwilling persons voluble, and the screams of a weak and exceptionally venerable man can be easily muffled. So they moved up to the one lighted window and heard the terrible old man talking childishly. I just want to know his name at this point. Quit calling him terrible old man. He has a name, sir, and it's Jack, and it's Spanish Jim. So they moved up to the one lighted window and heard the terrible old man talking childishly to his bottles with pendulums. I mean, that's a little... Hey, pretty bird. Hey, pretty bird. Talking childishly to his pendulums? Like, what does that even mean? Like, back and then forth and then forth and then back. Back and then forth be a pendulum stacked. I don't know who you are, but you're a gem pendulum. I'll take the applause later. Then they donned masks and knocked politely at the weather-stained oaken door. Knocked politely with masks on. Oh, hello, sir. I wasn't sure if you noticed that we have masks on. We're about to rob you, but we just wanted to make sure that you were in a safe place. And this, of course, your pendulum's there, and some of your silver and gold over there. We would probably like to take. So if you just sit back for a second, we would like to do that for us right now. What? Waiting seemed very long to Mr. Zanuck as he fidgeted restlessly in the covered motor car by the terrible old man's back gate in Ship Street. He was more than ordinarily tender-hearted, and he did not like the hideous screams he had heard in the ancient house just after the hour appointed for the deed. Got to conscience, okay. Had he not told his colleagues to be as gentle as possible with the pathetic old sea captain? Very nervously, he watched that narrow oaken gate in the high and ivy-clad stone walls. Frequently, he consulted his watch and wondered at the delay. Had the old man died before revealing where his treasure was hidden? And had a thorough search become necessary? Mr. Zanuck did not like the wait. So long in the dark in such a place. Then he sensed a soft tread or tapping on the walk inside the gate. Heard a gentle fumbling at the rusty latch, and saw the narrow, heavy door swing inward. And in the pallid glow of the single dim street lamp, he strained his eyes to see what his colleagues had brought out of that sinister house which loomed so close behind. Strained his eyes, like squinted, just like, oh, what the fuck is that? What is that? Is that what I think it is? Is that a trampoline? But when he looked, he did not see what he had expected, for his colleagues were not there at all, but only the terrible old man leaning quietly on his knotted cane and smiling hideously. Mr. Zanuck had never before noticed the color of the man's eyes. Now he saw that they were yellow. Let's go, old man! Terrible old man! Little things make considerable excitement in little towns, which is the reason that Kingsport people talked all that spring and summer about 3 unidentifiable bodies, horribly slashed as with many cutlasses, and horribly mangled as by the tread of many cruel boot heels, which the tide washed in. And some people even spoke of things as trivial as a deserted motor car found in Ship Street, or certain especially inhuman cries, probably of a stray animal or migratory bird, heard in the night by wakeful citizens. But in this idle village, gossip the terrible old man took no interest at all. He was by nature reserved, and when one is aged and feeble, one's reserve is doubly strong. Besides, so ancient a sea captain must have witnessed scores of things much more stirring in the far-off days of his unremembered youth. Yo! That is episode 40 real quick. I just wanted to get into it. It's called The Terrible Old Man. This guy, obviously, I mean, he killed these guys or something. I mean, he killed all 3 of them. What? I did not see that coming. I thought that... Oh my God, stop it. Okay, so again, The Terrible Old Man, it was written January 28th in 1920. I would love to see this. Like, I'm going to YouTube it. I don't know if, like... I mean, let's just do it. The Terrible Old Man. Wow, there's a lot. His eyes were yellow. That's the thing. Like, this, the big thing is, like, his eyes were yellow. And I'm looking at images right now for it. He's just like the peculiar bottles thing. Like, there's a video here, a little animation. I'll post that, or excuse me, place it onto the description. But wow. Incredible. H.P. Lovecraft is not gonna, he definitely does not disappoint at all, ever. So with that being said, I was saying mid story, I feel like it sounded like A Man Called Ove at the beginning, but then it turned into like A Man Called Ove times 10 with a horror ending, with him killing people and also having like these crazy Ghostbusters eyes that the dude doesn't, you know, like he's like is just so. I would even say like enamored by, but taken aback for sure. Anyhow, episode 40. I hope you guys have a good weekend. My name is Nate Chacon III. This is Short Story Bingo. We made this one short today. 20 minutes in. Just boom, knock it out. Just a quick one. If you're traveling right now, we have other episodes, of course, that you can listen to. Whatever what you're doing, I don't, you know. But Short Story Bingo. Happy Podcast Friday. Have a good weekend. Be safe, be lovely, and treat each other well. Again, my name is Nate Chacon III. Please share with all your friends and subscribe, and please comment on the iTunes. shortstorybingo.podbean.com is what you can share with all your friends, and visit our sponsors, Clean Cut Barbershop on 21 East Kelsey Avenue in Salt Lake City, Utah. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we are out. Okay, I'm done. Dun, dun, dun. Spare fingers. Cheers.